Well, good evening and welcome to Newswatch on the 7th day of May 2021, a day when Kenyans are reacting after the National Assembly passed the BBI bill yesterday and are pondering on whether there will be a referendum before the 2022 elections or not. Thank you for choosing Hope TV, where you look and live. My name is Tess Njenga and our sign language interpreter is Fiona Mweresa. Newswatch now begins. Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha has sent a stern warning to private schools that have other reopening plans other than that stipulated by the government. Speaking at the Starehe Boys Center during the closure of the marking exercise for KCSE examination, the CS said no one is special and that all pupils will reopen in accordance with the ministry's calendar. The CS has at the same time lauded the swift marking exercise that has been concluded in over 35 centers countrywide. Dolly Murigi now reports.
Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha has outlined the term preschool opening calendar. All learners are expected to resume studies on Monday next week, except those in grade 4 who shall remain home until 26th of July this year. Speaking on Friday at Starehe Boys Center during the closure of the KCSE marking exercise that began 3 weeks ago, Magoha said his ministry is working round the clock to recover the time lost to the coronavirus pandemic, urging players in the ministry to brace for a marathon.
So the government has said, after consultation with all the stakeholders, that learners expected to report to their schools are those in PP1, PP2, grade 1 to grade 3, standard 5 to standard 7, and Form 1 to Form 3, period.
Professor Magoha also warned that stern action will be taken against any school that violates the stipulated calendar by recalling grade 4 learners before July 26th.
So anybody who wants to bully parents to pay fees for children to go to school, I've never been on the parent side, but this time I'm on their side. Don't pay any money to anybody. But if you dare to do so, if you are a private school and you dare to do so, ask yourself where you got your license from. Because for His Excellency the President, every Kenyan child is equal. Every Kenyan child is equal. In fact, for us, we don't bother about a child in private school or public school.
Meanwhile, the government has released 7.5 billion shillings to secondary schools ahead of the school reopening on Monday.
Further, we have requested the third term 13 billion for secondary schools and 2.8 billion for primary schools. And I think this money should be available towards the end of next week. So we don't want to hear any excuse that you have not been empowered to run the school. But having said so, I want to thank you also for having done an excellent job in the past.
The CS says that the 35 marking centers countrywide should be fumigated before Monday to ensure learners and teachers are safe and are all prepared to comply with the Ministry of Health COVID-19 measures. These as more than 100,000 teachers in the country have received the COVID-19 jab. Dolly Mirigi for Hope TV News Watch.
Thank you, Dolly, for that report. Kenyans have expressed mixed reactions after the National Assembly on Thursday overwhelmingly passed the Building Bridges Initiative Bill 2020. The voting was largely divided along political lines, with lawmakers allied to President Uhuru Kenyatta and his handshake partner Raila Odinga voting in support of the bill. All eyes will now be trained at the Senate, which is expected to vote on the bill next week before paving the way for a referendum. Alice Diana brings us this story.
The National Assembly on Thursday night gave the Constitutional Amendment Bill 2020 a clean bill of health with an overwhelming vote in support of the constitutional amendment. A total of 320 members of parliament participated in voting during the second reading, where 235 of them voted in favor of the bill, while 83 voted against it, with 2 others abstaining. During voting in the third reading, which occurred a few minutes to midnight, the ayes were 224, nays 63, while 2 abstained.
I, Mushangi Karemba, Member of Parliament for Runyenje's constituency, I vote no.
I, Purity Wangoi Ngirishi, MP Kirinyaga County, in full recognition of their duty to me and what they have said I should do, I vote no.
Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi Faisal Badir Salim, mbunge wa Msambweni, kwa niaba ya watu wangwana wa Msambweni, napiga kura ya ndio.
Mr. Speaker, I, Elisha Ochieng Odhiambo, the MP for Game, on my own behalf and on behalf of the people of Game, I vote a big yes.
Therefore, honour members, just wish to, for purposes of the record, to confirm, as has been presented, the ayes 224, the nays 63, abstentions 2, total 289. The net effect, as you know, honour members, this being a bill that does not require a voice vote, the net result is the ayes have it.
A section of legislators allied to Deputy President William Ruto pulled a surprise with their support for the BBI bill, having campaigned against the amendments.
I, David Olesankok, representing 6.5 million Kenyans with disability, I vote yes.
I, Onesmus Kimani Ngonjiri, MP Bahati, I vote yes.
During the initial stages of the debate, lawmakers who are opposed to the Constitution Amendment termed the BBI drive an executive initiative, citing expenditure of public funds to facilitate the change process.
Today we are here as women celebrating the PPI, which is removing the women in the National Assembly, where they are supposed to oversee the budget-making process. This is where the government money is being shared.
Mr. Speaker, I want to jog the memory of this House, Mr. Speaker. For those of us who were in this House last Parliament, under the leadership of the Majority Leader, Honorable Aden Duale, Mr. Speaker, the 2010 Constitution, Mr. Speaker, emphasized an independent Inspector General of Police, Mr. Speaker, which the Constitution says there shall be an independent Inspector General, Mr. Speaker. The same Majority Leader here brought a bill, Mr. Speaker, an amendment bill, that removed the powers of the independence of the Inspector General, Mr. Speaker.
The people, Mr. Speaker, who have been making noise opposing this bill, Mr. Speaker, are the same people who are opposing the 2010 Constitution, Mr. Speaker. They have been given an opportunity to correct what they felt was not right in 2010, Mr. Speaker. Instead of correcting what they thought was bad in 2010, Mr. Speaker, they are again the same people, Mr. Speaker, opposing this bill, Mr. Speaker.
Meanwhile, a section of Kenyans have elicited mixed reactions on the BBI vote in Parliament.
I want to believe that whatever they did will bring for us a change as citizens. And I'm also looking forward to have our senators passing the BBI. I will obviously vote for yes. Yeah, so I also urge my fellow Kenyans to embrace the referendum as it comes for us.
I support the BBI. There's a good reaction on our Kenyans are supporting. I'm supported to pass the BBI.
I really think it's a waste of money because there will be more positions added and Kenyans are not getting any more jobs like it was promised. With COVID-19, there should be more priorities. They should prioritize other things other than the BBI right now.
I think BBI inafaa iletwe kwetu, we as people. Let us decide whether to vote it yes or no.
Concerning yesterday's poll Pale National Assembly, I'm disappointed with those members that we elected to represent us. You get, they're just a bunch of sellouts. They have betrayed us, and I don't expect less from the Senate. They will also pass the bill. The bill is for the elite, it's for the political class, not for the wananchi. So I urge the wananchi to just a no.
With the National Assembly having passed the BBI Bill 2020, Kenyans are now watching to see how the Senate will vote on the bill come next week. This even as a section of Kenyans have expressed mixed reactions on how their members of parliament voted on the bill. For Hope TV News Watch in Nairobi, I'm Alice Diana.
And Amani National Congress leader Musalia Mudavadi has urged Kenyans to make wise and informed decisions on the ballot when the referendum vote takes place. Mudavadi, who was speaking at Sibanga in Cherengani constituency, Trans Nzoia County, during the burial of Mzee John Etenesi, a former provincial commissioner during the late retired President Daniel Arap Moi's regime, said the BBI debate and its ultimate process has been with Kenya for a long time, and it's time the amendment bill is brought to Kenyans for them to make a decision through the ballot. The ANC party leader has also called on Kenyans to ensure they maintain peace and unity as the BBI bill approaches the final stages. According to Mudavadi, Kenyans should dwell in the spirit of BBI, which he says propagates unity, democracy, governance and administration.
Na mimi nilikuwa nimesema mjadala wa BBI umekuwa nasi, sasa umefika kiwango tuumalize. Na tunakaribia sasa kuumaliza. Kwa sababu ikifika mwisho wa mwaka huu, ni lazima tuanze kuongea mambo mengine. Kwa hivyo, stages zote zimepita, sasa tumeingia kwa stage ambayo itakuja kwa mwananchi. Viongozi wenu kwa bunge wamemwonyesha mwelekeo kwa vile wamepiga kura. Sasa mpura utarudi kwetu kule mashinani. Tujitahidi tutekeleze safari hii ikwishe vizuri. Tujenge taifa letu. Ni kuasihi tu tuwe kitu kimoja, tushikane kama Wakenya. Mimi na ndugu Weta tulisema tuache kubishana kwa mambo ambayo haina mwelekeo. Na matokeo ya hiyo hali ya kutobishana na kushikana yakaonekana. Kwa zile by-elections zilikuwa Bungoma na zikawa Matungu. Kwa hivyo tukiwacha ubishano wa bure, mimi na imani tunaweza kuwa na nafasi nzuri sana katika taifa letu. Tujipange. Tujipange. Wakina Macharia walijipanga. Wengine wakajipanga. Na sisi tujipange. Tusipangwe. Tujipange. Na tushikane na mambo yetu yatakuwa mazuri kama Wakenya.
Following the slow uptake of vaccines by Kenyans in some counties, the government is set to recall COVID-19 vaccines from such counties and redistribute them to other regions. Addressing the media, Health CS Mutahi Kagwe said the government will not allow the vaccines to expire in storage in health facilities. This as the country has recorded 568 new coronavirus cases in the last 24 hours after a sample size of 9,029 was tested. Our reporter Mark Kimondo gives us the details.
The government is set to recall COVID-19 vaccines from counties, the slow uptake and redistribute them to other regions. During a press briefing in Nyeri, Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe said about 200,000 doses are yet to be issued out, adding that the margin is due to slow uptake in some areas.
We will retake back the doses where there is a slow uptake of the vaccination. There are areas where there are counties we have distributed these doses, and there are counties that are slow at distributing and carrying out the vaccination process.
The Cabinet Secretary said as of Friday, a total of 911,515 people have been vaccinated countrywide. Of the figure, 531,540 are aged 58 years.
As I said sometime at this time last year, if we treat this disease normally, it can treat us abnormally. That was true then, as it is true today. And the fact is, as long as there are new variants coming into the country, and they will come to the country, no matter how much effort we put in, there is not a single country, unless you close your borders completely and allow nobody in and nobody out. That is the only way you can be sure. And even then, you never know. So as far as we are concerned, at MOH, we continue to urge you to be vigilant because it is going to come.
Meanwhile, the country on Friday recorded 568 new cases of COVID-19 from a sample size of 9,029 tested in the last 24 hours, representing a positivity rate of 6.3%. This now brings the total confirmed positive cases to 162,666 and cumulative tests so far conducted are 1,710,414. The country's fatalities have also risen to 2,865 after another 15 patients succumbed to the disease. The distribution in terms of counties, Nairobi has 142, followed by Kilifi with 44, Mombasa 38, Kisii 33, Kericho 30 and Nyeri 28. Some 173 patients have recovered from the disease, with 130 coming from the home-based and isolation care, while 43 are from various health facilities countrywide. In terms of admissions, 1,086 patients are currently admitted in various health facilities countrywide, while 6,381 patients are on home-based isolation and care. Currently, there are 131 patients in the intensive care unit, 28 of whom are on ventilatory support and 83 on supplemental oxygen. As the country continues to battle the virus, the government has heightened surveillance in Kisumu after the COVID-19 Indian variant was reported in the county. According to health officials, the patients have been isolated and contact tracing is ongoing.
With that identification and having realized that they had traveled from India, sometimes before we locked or suspended flights from India, we went ahead and took the samples to CDC Kisumu, where sequencing was done, and indeed 8 were revealed to be bearing the very variant that is circulating in India, the B.1.167. We took the initiative and, of course, reached out to the county government of Kisumu and the county health management team. We locked down the institution and contact traced around the institution.
Mark Kimondo for Newswatch, Nairobi.
Thanks, Mark. In Kakamega County, 5 people died in a gold mine accident yesterday evening at Bushiangala village in Ikolomani constituency. According to Kakamega South Police boss Joseph Chesire, 8 other people were injured and taken to Shibwe Hospital. 2 of the injured are in critical condition. They were part of a group of about 30 people in a mine that is reportedly more than 100 feet deep when it partially collapsed, leading to some of them being buried under sand. Mining activities have been stopped after the accident, with locals asking the county government to provide local youth with modern equipment to carry out the mining work. The Orange Democratic Movement ODM party will hold its grassroots election and national election after the 2022 general election. Deputy party leader Wycliffe Oparanya said the party will not hold elections this year as earlier scheduled due to insufficient time to prepare. Governor Oparanya was speaking after hosting 6 ODM MCAs from Vihiga County who met him to discuss on strategies to revitalize the party.
No, at the moment, you see, the process was put on hold because of COVID. We are hopeful that when COVID goes down, the National Election Board will be able to process the nomination so that we are formally nominated. I've just presented the papers. I don't know if they will disqualify me for maybe one case or one issue, but at the moment I put in the papers, and I'm told my other colleague Joho has also put his papers. After that, we will move around and try to convince delegates to vote for us, to vote for me personally. And I've been talking about this for, even yesterday I talked about it. And even when I met my party leader, I told him. And at the moment, he has not told me if he's going to stand or not. We have agreed at the National Central Committee that we carry out harmonization in all our branches and in all our party structures because of that. And we feel this will be more viable at the moment, because even if you did elections near general election, it becomes a problem. Many issues arise, and in the process you might divide the party. We want to avoid that, so that we carry out party harmonization, and we might now do elections for the party immediately after the general election.
Let us now take our first commercial break on Newswatch Tonight. We have more local and international news coming up, so keep it Hope TV.
Next week on Turning Point.
The pressing questions of our past, present, and future are all answered by this book, because you see, the scriptures, like Christ, are eternal. They're authoritative yesterday, today, and forever. This book, these words, this scripture speaks to us authoritatively. It explains life, but it also gives us strength and comfort to live life. Perhaps greater than anything we have talked about so far in this long series of messages that will give you confidence in a chaotic time, this is that source. It is the Bible to which we turn when things seem to be upside down in our lives. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm convinced that this miraculous book provides an accurate account of history and the only account of the future.
That's next week on Turning Point.
Welcome back. The Nubian community living in Kibra constituency, Nairobi County, has once again decried lack of identification cards ahead of the 2022 general election. Addressing the media on Friday, Nubian Rights Forum NRF chairman Shafi Ali Hussein said the government has failed to give its youth identification cards, a move that has seen them not participate in many activities, including voting. The Nubian population is estimated to be over 100,000 in Kenya.
We fail to understand why such a discriminatory act should be allowed to continue at the expense of the livelihoods and rights of the Nubian children. Additionally, were it true that a committee sitting of 15 people is a gathering, then it is clear that the government failed to set up inclusive measures in place to ensure that while we keep safe as Kenyans, we also get a fair shot at getting our documents processed in time for our education or career ventures. On either side of the scale, it is the responsibility of the Kenyan government to ensure that everyone is treated equally and fairly. However, intentionally locking out Nubians from getting identification cards without an explanation, while other Kenyans can get their documentation request processed, is a clear indicator about how the government treats minority communities in the country. Most importantly, it is unfortunate that at a point where we are headed towards the general election, the government is not concerned with ensuring the measures are put in place for every Kenyan to enjoy their right to vote.
Wundanyi Member of Parliament Danson Mwashako has called on the Kenya Wildlife Service KWS to intervene following a rise in human-wildlife conflict in the area. This is after Kishuse residents in Taita Taveta decried losses after elephants intruded their farms and destroyed crops. Mwashako, who visited the area residents, has strongly condemned the KWS for laxity.
Hivyo tuko na hasara kwa upande wa wanyama, shule imeathirika. Juzi walitembelea wakubwa wa KWS, lakini vile wanavyotuahidi wanasema mpaka pesa zitoke juu. Kwa hivyo hawana uhakika kama watalipa lile tanki. Kwa hivyo kama serikali kuu, naomba hivi shule zinafunguliwa kesho kutwa, na kulingana na janga la corona watoto wanahitaji maji. Je, haya maji tutastiri na nini kama wanyama washaribu haya matangi? Kwa hivyo naomba kama serikali kuu, tafadhali watutengee pesa haraka, walipe lile tangi haraka, na ikiwezekana watutengee pesa pia za kuweka ukuta kwa hilo tangi.
Sasa tunashindwa sisi tufanyeje, maana hatuna nguvu ya kuinda hizi ndovu. Tukiangalia hapa shuleni zinatuharibia, zimefanya njia, hata mkienda hapo karibu mtaona njia ya kila siku mpaka zipite hapa shuleni ndio zipite. Imekuwa ni njia yao. Sasa tunashindwa tufanyeje, kama Mungu ametupatia chakula na ndovu zinatuharibia. Tutaendelea kukaa na hizi ndovu kama ni waya imeangushwa huko ndani. Mbona hawa watu wa KWS hawezi kurekebisha hiyo waya? Ama kama ni pesa, hizi ndovu ukiua mmoja umeua mamilioni ya pesa kwa wildlife. Lakini sisi wanadamu tukiambiwa tulipo inakuwa ni kujaza fomu. Miaka yote ni kujaza fomu, miaka yote ni kujaza fomu, hatulipiki. Tutakuja lipwa miaka gani? Wakati Yesu amerudi ndio tutakuja kulipwa ama tutakuaje?
Na wasiwasi wangu ni je, hawa wanafunzi watakapofungua wiki ijayo tarehe 10 watakuwa wakienda shuleni? Na kama wataenda shuleni, usalama wao utakuwa namna gani? Kwa sababu ndio hata mchana sasa hivi ukiingia porini hapa tayari wako na kuna mashamba ya watu hapo. Wanapopanda, wanapofika kule asubuhi kunapopambazuka, basi wanatafuta kichaka kilicho karibu hapo wanajificha. Sasa wanapojificha pale na wanafunzi wanaenda shuleni, jamani kutakuwa namna gani? Tumelia, tumekerwa na bado hawa wanyama wanazidi kutuharibia. Ukienda kwa mashamba ya watu, kuna mzee ameongea hapa, mzee Maganga. Shamba lake limekuwa kama sasa ni uwanja wa mpira. Alikuwa na mihogo, mbaazi zimevunjwa. Na ukiangalia huyu mzee kama huyu, miaka yake imeenda. Sasa hii ni ile mihogo ndo anategemea kidogo kidogo ili msaidie kuendeleza maisha.
Hawa watu tumekaa nao sasa, bado ndovu hazijapungua kutusumbua. Sasa kwa nini wanatufanyia mzaha? Na tunajua ndovu tuliko nazo hapa Kishushe si nyingi, lakini kile tunakosa ni uaminifu wa KWS kuja kutoa mifugo zao kwetu kuzirudisha park.
About 500 farmers from Kiamukama of Nyaribari Masaba constituency in Kisii County had reason to smile after they received free medical treatment from medics of Kiamukama Health Facility Center. The event was organized by the Kenya Tea Development Agency Foundation, headed by Sudi Matara, who is the head of the foundation. Dr. Janet Kwamboka, Nyaribari Masaba Sub-County Medical Officer, noted that the 3-day free medical is targeting to offer hypersensitive, diabetic, prostate and cervical cancer screening advisories to the area populace.
The disease which we are targeting were hypertensive and diabetes. That's the burden in Nyaribari Masaba. But at the same time, we are doing prostate screening and prostate cancer screening and cervical cancer screening. We are targeting kids for this common cold and other diseases which might get, and then we are going to refer them in case we get other conditions which are here.
From the medical camps that we've carried across the country, we've discovered that many of our farmers, especially those ones who are above 50, if we look at the statistics, for example, for non-communicable diseases here, I'm talking about diabetes, I'm talking about high blood pressure, I'm talking about arthritis, You will get, and cancers, of course, not to forget, because cancers are really killing our people across the tea growing areas.
Moving on, as KTDA, we've reached a point where we are seeing that there are other factors that we need to inculcate into the business, particularly more targeted to the farmer, for purposes, of course, of enhancing not only the financial aspect of the farmer, but also the health part of it.
Shukuru sana kwanza ile madaktari ile kazi wamefanya. Nilikuwa na tatizo ya pressure, nimeangaliwa tatizo ya sukari, yote nimeangaliwa, nimehudumiwa, nimetungwa sindano, nimepewa madawa. Nimeona ni mzuri sana hii kitu, hii exercise iendelee, at least kila mwaka ikuwe kama 2,000 ama 3.
Let's cross borders to South Africa, where in the early hours of this Friday morning, Zulu Queen Mantfombi Dlamini Zulu was buried in a private ceremony in South Africa's KwaZulu-Natal province. She was appointed regent of the country's largest ethnic group in March following the death of her husband, King Godwill Zwelithini. The Queen's death at 65 has triggered a bitter family feud and a power struggle over the succession. The cause of the Queen's death is yet to be announced by the royal family, as well as a decision on who will now lead the Zulu nation of about 11 million people is yet to be made. The Queen was the sister to King Mswati III of neighboring Eswatini, and she was buried according to Swati royal culture. A state-funded memorial has followed at the palace, with the Zulu and Swati royal families in attendance, as well as former South Africa President Jacob Zuma, who has always celebrated his Zulu identity, and other politicians. And debris from a Chinese rocket is expected to fall back to Earth in an uncontrolled re-entry this weekend. The main segment from the Long March 5B vehicle was used to launch the first module of China's new space station last month. At least 18 tons, it is one of the largest items in decades to have an undirected dive into the atmosphere. The US on Thursday said it was watching the path of the object, but currently had no plans to shoot it down, be hopeful that it will land in a place where it won't harm anyone. Various space debris modeling experts are pointing to late Saturday or early Sunday as the likely moment of re-entry. However, such projections are always highly uncertain. Convoys of troops allied to the opposition have been seen withdrawing from Somalia's capital, Mogadishu, a fortnight after clashes in the city sparked fears of a return to civil war. The withdrawal is the result of new political negotiations aimed at resolving a bitter dispute over long-delayed elections. Their sudden arrival in the city last month led to clashes with pro-government forces and an exodus of civilians. There was widespread fear that brinkmanship by the country's political elites was pushing Somalia back towards the days of clan warfare and anarchy. But under international pressure, President Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed, known as Farmajo, backed down on his controversial plan to hold on to power for an extra 2 years. Election talks resumed, and Somalia even reached out to Kenya to end a separate crisis and restore diplomatic relations. Let us now take our second commercial break on Newswatch Tonight. Business and sports news is coming up.
Our Christian life is not just about God always stepping in when you are in trouble. But sometimes you need to go through the valley of the shadow of death, and God will say, angels, stand away. He must go through that. She must go through that. Because out of this would come something greater and more beautiful.
Welcome back. Let's look at business. The Central Bank of Kenya, CBK, has appointed the Kenya Deposit Insurance Corporation, KDIC, as liquidator of Charter Bank Limited, CHB. This follows the submission of the statutory management report by the statutory manager on May 6, 2021, recommending that CHB be liquidated. The report indicates that in view of the severe violations of the Banking Act by CHB and its inability to address them, liquidation is the only feasible option. In a statement released on Friday, CBK says it has assessed the recommendation and considered that liquidation will facilitate the orderly resolution of the assets and liabilities of CHB in accordance with the laws of Kenya to protect the interest of CHB depositors, its creditors, other stakeholders, and the wider public interest. KDIC will release information about the liquidation of CHB and payment of depositors in due course. 4-3. The first national census for wildlife on land and sea was launched on Friday by the Tourism Ministry. Speaking at Shimba Hills, Cabinet Secretary Najib Balala said that the census is important as it will help determine the population and distribution of Kenya's wildlife. He added that it aims to determine the population trends over time, and identify threats to conservation and management of Kenya's landscape. Balala says that the government will protect its wildlife data, even as he called on Kenya Wildlife Service, KWS, not to publish wildlife data without the approval of the government.
I want to make it very clear to KWS and WRT, no public announcement of data without verification and approval by government, no announcement of importation or exportation of any animals without proper approval of cabinet. These are the policies that we have. So all those announcements that I hear around, that we are going to import this animal or export this animal, they are null and void until cabinet approves. Because this is a sensitive resource, we need the government to be in the middle of it.
Let's take a look at business news. Kenyan assistant referees Gilbert Cheriot and Mary Njoroge have been selected to officiate in the Tokyo 2020 Olympics men and women's football tournaments. The two top referees are part of the 99 officials selected by FIFA from 51 countries. And Manchester United and Villarreal will face off in the Europa League final after completing respective last 4 wins over Roma and Arsenal. This and more in our sports update with Joseph Maingi.
The World Football Governing Body FIFA has selected two top referees, Gilbert Cheriot and Mary Njoroge, to officiate the 2020 FIFA Men's and Women's Olympics football tournament. The two are among 99 match officials, who include 25 referees, 50 assistant referees, 20 video officials, and 4 support referees selected from 51 countries. Mary was early this year appointed to officiate the CAF Confederation Cup group stage match between Cameroon's Cotton Sports and Zambia's Naspa Stars. Her counterpart Gilbert Cheriot had also in January this year put the Kenyan flag on the map when he officiated the African Championship quarterfinal pitting Mali and Congo alongside FIFA referee Dr. Peter Waweru Kamaku, who was a center referee. To some last night's UEFA Europa League update, and Villarreal will face Manchester United in the Europa League final after the Spanish side held out to a 0-0 draw at Arsenal last night to prevent a clean sweep of the European finalist for the Premier League sides. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang twice hit the crossbar for Arsenal, but a 2-1 aggregate defeat means that Gunners will miss out on the Champions League football for the 5th consecutive season. Elsewhere, Edison Cavani scored twice for Manchester United, who progressed 8-5 on aggregate despite a 3-2 defeat away to Roma. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's men will aim to end up a 4-year trophy drought when they take up Villarreal on the 26th of this month, 3 days before Manchester City face off with Chelsea in the Champions League final on the 29th of this month. That's your sport. I'm Joseph Maingi.
Thank you, Joseph. And that sports news is where we conclude Newswatch tonight. Thank you for your valuable company throughout the week. My name is Tess Njenga, and our sign language interpreter is Fiona Mweresa. Have a good night and a blessed weekend. God bless.